Where we're going, we don't need roads. My God, has it been that long?
In the winter of 1984, a film that would become one of the most iconic blockbusters of all time was already deep into production and already in trouble. Back to the Future, written by Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, had finally gotten the green light after years of rejection. Steven Spielberg was backing it, Universal had agreed to distribute it, the cast was in place, and the DeLorean was waiting in the wings. But after several weeks of filming, the producers and director faced a devastating realization. Their lead actor, Eric Stoltz, simply wasn't working out as Marty McFly. The decision to fire Stoltz and replace him with Michael J. Fox would not only change the trajectory of the movie, but also reshape Hollywood history. To understand why this decision was so monumental, you have to appreciate the stakes. Back to the Future was not a sure thing. For years, the script had bounced around Hollywood, rejected more than 40 times. Studios thought it was too strange, too sweet, or too risky. One executive told Zemeckis and Gale it wasn't sexy enough. Others worried audiences wouldn't buy into a time travel comedy. It took Zemeckis' success with Romancing the Stone to finally convince Universal to take the gamble. When filming began in November 1984, the clock was already ticking. Money was pouring in by the tens of thousands of dollars each day, and every delay risked disaster. Eric Stoltz, at that moment, seemed like the right choice. He was young, talented, and already had critical buzz from his performance in Mask. Universal executive Sidney Sheinberg pushed for him, believing Stoltz could deliver the depth and intensity to carry a high-concept story. On paper, it made sense. But as the weeks went on, Zemeckis, Gale, and the crew watched dailies and grew increasingly worried. Stoltz approached Marty McFly as though he were a tragic figure caught in a nightmare, rather than a goofy teenager stumbling through a time travel mishap. He delivered lines with seriousness, avoided slapstick, and insisted on staying in character even off-set, which created tension with cast members. To Stoltz, Marty's journey was about trauma, about a boy realizing he'd been erased from his own existence. To Zemeckis, Marty had to be funny, light, quick-witted, and endlessly relatable. Leah Thompson, who played Lorraine, later described Stoltz as a brilliant but brooding presence. She noted that his acting style was more in line with the Robert De Niro school of intense realism that dominated the 1970s. He treated scenes with gravity, focusing on emotional weight rather than comic rhythm. The problem was that Back to the Future was not Taxi Driver. It was a comedy that required rhythm, slapstick, and a certain looseness. When Lorraine kisses Marty in the car and recoils, saying it feels like kissing her brother, the moment needed a delicate balance of creepiness and relief. With Stoltz, it was too heavy. With Fox, it became funny, awkward, and unforgettable. Bob Gale later explained that Stoltz's interpretation made the movie feel like a tragedy. Marty returns to 1985 and realizes his family is different, raising existential questions about whether his memories are real. These might be great themes for late-night philosophy over beer, but they weren't what audiences needed in a popcorn summer blockbuster. They needed laughter, speed, and charm, and the crew knew it. Christopher Lloyd, who played Doc Brown, said that working with Stoltz felt like performing in a drama rather than a comedy. Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff, remembered how Stoltz would throw himself into physical scenes with bruising intensity, once even injuring him during a fight sequence. The energy just didn't fit the playful, cartoonish spirit of the film. After 6 long weeks of shooting, nearly half the movie, Zemeckis and Gale came to a painful conclusion. They had to fire their lead. It was an extraordinary risk. Recasting a main actor midway through production was almost unheard of. It meant reshooting nearly every scene that had already cost millions to film. But Spielberg, Zemeckis, and Gale agreed. Better to fix it now than release a film that didn't work. Zemeckis himself delivered the news to Stoltz. Later, he suggested Stoltz might have been somewhat relieved. Perhaps the actor realized deep down that his instincts weren't aligned with the film's tone. The question then became, who could replace him? The answer was obvious to Zemeckis and Gale: Michael J. Fox. He had been their first choice all along. At the time, Fox was starring in the hit sitcom Family Ties, playing the wisecracking Alex P. Keaton. He had the charisma, the timing, and the youthful energy they needed. The problem was his television schedule. Gary David Goldberg, producer of Family Ties, had initially refused to let him go, but with Stoltz gone and the film in crisis, Universal pressed harder. A deal was struck. Fox Fox would work on Family Ties during the day and film Back to the Future at night. The schedule was brutal. Fox would finish taping his sitcom around 6 p.m., then head straight to the movie set, often working until 3 a.m. He survived on little sleep, often napping in the car between locations. Yet the moment he stepped onto set, his energy was infectious. He cracked jokes, improvised gags, and moved with the physical agility of a seasoned clown. He could trip over himself, get tangled in guitar chords, or spit take with perfect precision. Thompson marveled at how Fox studied the techniques of classic comedians like Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy, rehearsing physical bits until they landed flawlessly. The chemistry was immediate. With Fox opposite Christopher Lloyd, the relationship between Marty and Doc suddenly came alive. Their banter felt sharp and spontaneous, their friendship oddly believable despite the age gap. With Fox opposite Thompson, the delicate Oedipal subplot balanced on the edge of comedy rather than discomfort. The entire film shifted in tone. What had felt heavy with Stoltz now felt buoyant, electric, and magical.
Back to the Future.
The gamble paid off. Back to the Future was released in July 1985 and exploded at the box office, grossing more than $200 million in the US alone. Critics raved, audiences flocked back multiple times, and the film entered the cultural bloodstream. Ronald Reagan famously quoted it in his State of the Union address. The phrase, "Where we're going, we don't need roads," became shorthand for boundless imagination.
Never has there been a more exciting time to be alive. A time of rousing wonder and heroic achievement. As they said in the film, Back to the Future, where we're going, we don't need roads.
And at the heart of it all was Michael J. Fox, the young Canadian actor whose comic timing turned a risky project into an immortal classic. For Stoltz, the sting must have been deep. He went on to have a respected career in films like Mask, Some Kind of Wonderful, and Pulp Fiction, but he never became a global superstar. Fox, meanwhile, rode Back to the Future into Hollywood history, cementing his status with sequels, TV hits, and a lasting reputation as one of the most likable actors of his generation.
That's him. That's our star.
I want this job. I can do it. Whatever the exception is, I can fix it. I can be older. I can be taller.
The story of Stoltz's firing remains one of Hollywood's most famous what-ifs. What if the producers had stuck with him? Would Back to the Future still have succeeded? Would it have been remembered as a cult oddity rather than a generational touchstone? Bob Gale himself admitted. Without Fox, the film might never have survived, and we likely wouldn't even be talking about it today. Looking back 40 years later, the decision seems obvious, even inevitable. But in 1985, it was a terrifying leap of faith. The film could have collapsed under the weight of reshoots and ballooning costs. Instead, it became lightning in a bottle, a rare alignment of story, casting, and cultural timing. Today, Back to the Future is as beloved as ever, and the story of why Michael J. Fox replaced Eric Stoltz serves as a reminder of how fragile greatness can be, and how close Hollywood came to never getting it at all.